too far into the
Oh my god, so ridiculous.
Well, I'm 46, and 4 times 6 is 24, and then 2 plus 4 is 6.
Oh shit! And then
6.
I'm 42, so that's 6. So we got 6, 6, and then
Oh my
we had
god.
another one.
Anybody? Anyone?
Oh my god.
It's good that Pete, she is not hearing that.
Anyway, Riley, I think it's good shit. I commend you. I give you props for this because honestly, people need to start doing this type of shit.
Agreed.
And it might just inspire other people to do something like it, if just whether it works or not.
It is a gamble though, because there is the real risk that it'll be rejected. I might even go through all the point where I get all the work done and get it all, like, because you have to bind it and you have to publish it in hard format for it to be submitted. I may go through that whole process, submit it, and it may just get instantly rejected because it's anti-establishment in some way, which would be a pain in the ass. But if that's what happens, then that's probably a really strong statement in itself that they rejected it.
Well, even Riley, I mean, I think there's credit in just putting it out there. You know, the fact that you're trying to do this and you're putting it out there will hopefully raise that question in people's minds. Like, you know, maybe he's right. Like, how the hell do we know what the distance to the sun is? Like, how do we, like, what is the empirical evidence of that?
Yeah. Because saying it's true and proving it's true are two different things, and if everyone believes it's true,
of course, you know, they're gonna go to the satellites and this and that, and we send things to the sun all the time. We got two satellites surrounding the sun right now. Like, you know, they're gonna throw all of that shit at you.
Yeah, and that's where, because I'll have to argue it both sides. I'll have to argue that, well, there is evidence that supports it, and this is the evidence that says it's true. But then I will counter it by saying, well, that doesn't prove the point. It's a story, but it's not necessarily proof. Are we being taught proofs, or are we being taught stories? And it does seem to be that we're getting taught stories, not proofs.
Well, a proof could potentially be a journey from the Earth to the Sun by a satellite on camera in one shot. But yeah, let's see that happen.
Which you would think they would have already by now, right?
What?
You would think they would be able to afford cameras and just put cameras everywhere. I mean, that's the whole basis. You're trying to gather information. Why wouldn't you have, if you're gonna put a satellite in space and send it to the sun, why would you not have a camera on it?
They don't have it because they're not there. They can't.
No, I mean, yeah, I know that, but I'm saying, like, these are questions that even regular people with some type of critical thinking need to ask, you know.
But you do realize that eventually they will be able to do that with pure CGI, just an extensive model out there, and they'll show satellites all virtual with cameras filming everything.
Yeah, but the point is, why haven't we gotten that until now?
Because it's very hard to do, especially with the debates going on.
And what better weapon will we then have to say that there has been a peer-reviewed document questioning something simple like how far away is the sun? I mean, that's one of the most basic questions that we all get taught in, like, at the age of 5, 93 million miles, and we all remember that number, right?
Who's got all the who's causing the background noise? I can't really hear you, Anthony.
Pardon?
Yeah, Travis is making a lot of noise.
Oh, is it Travis?
Right.
Oh, right.
Is it? I don't think it is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was his truck.
It always sounds like he's driving a refrigerator.
It does. It does sound very mechanical
probably
and
is a
electrical
giant
almost.
refrigerator. You have a refrigerated truck?
That might be his truck. You might be really insulting him right now, you know.
Oh, no, it's not refrigerated. It's a dry van.
You would call it a reefer truck.
Yeah. No, I'm hauling pumpkins and gourds right now to New York. I'm going to be passing right by you, Chocolate.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah. I'm going to be in Melville and Massapequa.
You're further out there. That's cool.
Yeah.
Long Island.
Yeah.
It's cool, man.
Hey, what I like about this endeavor is what I liked about Jeranisms as far as trying to get that video about the astronauts golfing in space.
Yeah, they've sent
which
the wrong
is-
one, haven't they?
Right, and that's what's awesome is that through access, he figured that out, what would happen, what might happen. And so it's just another angle, another in. So that's what I like about it, is that you'll try to access, try to get the information, and regardless of whether you get it or not, you'll gain knowledge by going through the process.
But also we'll gain what happens if this fails, because if they reject it for no real credible reason, it'll be something along the lines of this is unethical or whatever. And if that happens, then that is a massive, massive red flag to everybody, because they shouldn't be rejecting this kind of stuff. It's academic, right? But I've got a feeling that there's probably a 50-50 chance that they might not actually let me do this. I've got to really think carefully about how I word my proposal, because I've got to put forward a proposal that one of the lecturers who are qualified barristers or solicitors will vet and make sure that it's got something juicy in it in terms of, I mean, I've got to fill 15,000 words, and they want to make sure that there's enough meat on the bone to get that 15,000 words. Well, I know that there's shed loads, but it's a case of, is it what they're looking for? And I can't make it sound too conspiratorial initially, but by my final draft, I can.
If you don't mind me asking, where did you come up with this idea? Is this something you've been thinking about for a while, or?
Yeah, the idea came from the troll account that was. It said something like Riley cannot do a PhD. That was what planted the seed, but I didn't know what the seed was. But it planted something in my mind, and then somebody then said, I don't believe you've got a degree, or something along them lines. I don't believe you're qualified in any way. You just sound like a retard or whatever. And they wanted to see my certificates. And I was like, I could show them, but do I need to? No. Should I? No.
I remember when you said that before, and during the show, and I think it was Nick who took credit for that. He said, Nick with no L.
Yeah.
Like he had typed, oh, I was that troll account, or something like that. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but I remember when you said that and I was reading the chat, he came on and said, oh, I was that troll account. Thanks for the shout out. So
that would make sense.
I mean, on the replay, I guess you can go back and look at it, but yeah. So.
And I'm pretty sure M. Scott Beach already basically verified that you guys actually went to the same university just at different points in time for a while.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Zinda, the Plain Truth, Stopping Traffic in Morasta Hat, Sleeping Warrior, Physics Warrior, Jose, Earth Flattener, Chocolate Saiyan, and Arwin. Good to have you all.
Yo.
Guten Tag.
Yo.
Good afternoon.
So we are going to forego housekeeping on this episode, because just before the break and on the last show, which was 506, I believe, we were talking about Anthony, who is trying to get a peer-reviewed document through the education system and out the other end. We will require some crowdfunding for this, which will happen at a later date. I'm not sure if Anthony's actually got a GoFundMe set up yet or not. If he has, I will promote that on this show. If not, it'll be done on a separate show on Anthony's channel at a later stage. But we're going to carry on discussing that, the benefits of it to Flat Earth in general, if it succeeds or if it fails. And generally, probably a good idea would be to summarise exactly what it is that you're thinking of doing, Anthony, as this is a new show now. So can you summarise exactly what your plan is and what it will achieve if it achieves it, and what it will achieve if it doesn't?
I want to submit a peer-reviewed document through the UK education system at master's level that's pro-flat Earth and questioning whether or not anybody or somebody or possibly nobody is actually responsible for what we're being taught. And when I say we, I mean the children. I mean, it's like what Mark Sargent says, 1 + 1 is 2, we live on a ball. Well, is that actually true? And one of the best questions that I found is the 93 million mile sun, because the whole body of science is supposed to tell us that that's true. But I can't find the science that tells me it's true. So my intention is to write and submit a dissertation at master's level, questioning whether or not the law in the UK would indict anybody, somebody, or nobody, because a critic might look at the law and say, well, yeah, there is the law there, but they've never used it, and I don't see how it would ever apply to anybody, because teachers are just teaching what they get taught, right? So it's a critical assessment of the UK domestic law on education, and basically seeing, is anybody ever responsible for what we get taught, or is it actually the case that nobody's responsible and they can pretty much teach us anything? Because there's enough evidence out there for me to question. I mean, the 93 million mile sun is a good one. What is the proof that we live where we're told, and we get told it at such a young age when we're very impressionable? I mean, I'm 38 now, and I've only come to this in the last 2-3 years. I hadn't even I had no reason to question it until then. But obviously it's come around, and I've spent a bit of time in Flat Earth, got to know all the main people in it. And I'm wondering, will anybody ever be questioned legally about the state of the earth, or is the education system infallible in that, yeah, the laws are there, but they're never applied? Yeah, there's a law there, but nobody's ever been prosecuted for anything to do with false teachings or whatever. Or is it a complete and utter mess, and flat earthers are stupid? The proof in the pudding will be that it goes through the system, comes back out the other side, and doesn't get rejected. The real risk is that it will be seen as too conspiratorial, and politically they may not allow me to do it on the topic that I want to do, even though it is my choice. And if that does happen, then that's an issue, isn't it? But it's an issue that basically tells you that you're not allowed to question the state. So that's really what it is. Is the state actually accountable for what it teaches us if they can't prove that their teachings are true? And if they are accountable, has anybody ever been held accountable? And could we actually get anybody in front of a judge at some point if we could prove that what we're being taught is not true? We're all told about the whole body of science. Well, where is it? It doesn't seem to exist. It might just be this mythical unicorn that we're all told exists and that we all believe exists. But when it comes to the push comes to the shove, I mean, I haven't seen this evidence that proves the sun is the 93 million miles away. It doesn't seem that anybody's done it. And that's just one of 4, 5, 6, 10 topics that we could put through to this. And I think that there's a valid case to put it through, be peer reviewed by my peers, who are barristers or solicitors in practice, and hopefully get it out the other side with the question of, is it true? Ultimately, is it true? And that's what I want to achieve. That's what I'm hoping to achieve. And the risk is that it might not actually make it through the other side.
Nonetheless, the actual process has begun. So you've, again, despite pressure from me saying, look, just do a GoFundMe to raise the funds to do this, get it in place, start doing it. You've said, no, I want to hold off. I want to get all the documents in. I've got to get this document. I'm not officially on the course, etc., etc., etc. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, it's official. You are on the course. You are officially doing this, correct?
Yeah. I had a conditional acceptance subject to proving my qualifications that I claimed that I had. I was away for the last week, and the deadline was yesterday. And when I got back yesterday, I had to find these documents because my qualifications are like 10 years old now, so it's not something I can find quickly or easily, especially when we've redecorated two of the rooms in the house. I know they're around somewhere, just didn't know exactly where they were. But yesterday was the deadline. I got them in for the deadline, and now that unconditional offer became the conditional offer became an unconditional offer. I accepted it this morning, and I'm now on the course. I have my course details. I know who my lecturer is. I know where I'm supposed to be, on what dates, at what times. I know what I'm doing. I'm on the course. I've not had the invoice yet, but the invoice will be. It needs to be paid in the next fortnight, 3 weeks or so. I mean, they're going to want the money pretty quick, but at least I'm on the course. My name is down, and I am getting in. And I have the choice on what I do my dissertation on, which is do I really have the choice, or is it just the choice that I think I've got? Because ultimately, that's the key question. It is my choice. It's just whether or not I'm allowed to do it. And that's where it gets a little bit political, because anybody questioning anything to do with this is probably going to get doors shut in their face quickly. And I think that's a realistic possibility and probability. And I may not get away with doing this the way I want to do it, but that's why I want to do it, because I want to see whether or not it is true free will. Do I have the freedom to choose my topic? And my topic in this instance is, are we being taught the truth? And if we are, why is it so difficult to find? But if we're not, is anybody legally responsible under the UK law?
Have you already set up a GoFundMe?
I was doing it just before we started this show. I haven't quite finished it yet, but it's set up. I'm just popularising the description box. I'm not quite finished with it, but I will be by later on tonight.
Okay, so at some point this week, well, we're Friday already, aren't we? Either over the weekend or next week, at some stage, we will run a fundraiser. It'll be dedicated to that cause. So that answers a few people in the chat. No, this whole show won't be dedicated to fundraising for the GoFundMe, but it is still needing discussing, and it will be fundraised at some stage.
Yeah, and my intention is really to get a peer-reviewed paper through the system and back out the other side, and it will create political awareness, because everyone's going to have an opinion on it, and who dares challenge anything like this at this level? I mean, you wouldn't even do this in a degree, let alone a master's degree. You wouldn't really go against the establishment, but that's really what it is, anti-establishment in the sense that we're questioning what we're told in the classroom at the age of 5, because it's one of the first things that we get taught. I agree with Mark Sargent. 2 + 2 is 4. We live on a ball. Well, is it really? Is it true? And I'm looking forward to it because, yeah, I'm nervous because I realise the ramifications could be serious. But I'm also excited, which translates into nervousness as well. But I'm on the course. I've committed to it. I've ticked the box. I've signed the paperwork. It's done. I'm in. I'm doing it. And I'm hoping that it's going to at least raise awareness to the possibility that that sun might not be 93 million miles away. And if it's not, or the assertion can't be proven, who's responsible for that? Is it the Secretary of State for Education? Is it the teacher that told you? Is it the university or the school or the primary school that told you? Is it the local education authority? Is it all of them, or is it none of them? Is everybody responsible, but ultimately nobody gets the punishment for teaching us assertions that are not necessarily true? And that's my question. Is anybody actually responsible, or is it really the case that nobody is? Because, I mean, call me conspiratorial, but I reckon that nobody will be. And I'll be gobsmacked if anybody's ever been prosecuted for false teachings. But I'm sure there might be somebody somewhere, maybe in 1896 or something like that. But I want to know. I want to know, is anybody ultimately responsible for what we get taught? And that's why it's interesting, because, like I say, 2 + 2 is 4. We live on a ball.
Honestly, I think the timing is perfect, just based on we're living in a time right now when not everybody, but a lot of people in the world are waking up to a lot of shit. So I think the timing of this is pretty good.
Jamie Heth says
the time to ask basic questions is basically arrived.
Yeah.
Jamie Heth
comes
says,
down to
Riley, show evidence on your screen that you have applied for this course. I can't show evidence that I'm on the course because I don't want the well getting poisoned, because I know that people like George will be ringing people up in the institution in question and literally trying to poison the well, and I'm not going to allow that. What I will do to prove validity to my claim is I will show trusted people within Flat Earth who will then vouch for me that it's true. So you're going to have to trust the word of man, because the word of man is generally seem to be the standard at times for the standard of evidence. Well, in this occasion, that's what I'm going to do. But there's enough evidence. Nathan knows that it's true, because he knows I've been doing it and I'm working through it in the last week or so, because I was away at the time. He knows that it's true.
Yeah, but can you not redact some of the paperwork that you've got and show that?
Yeah, I could do
that just to shut them up straight away.
Trouble is, though, it's then been redacted and therefore edited, and would they consider it as credible?
I couldn't care less. I just
don't
want people saying this is
the
one thing I don't want is people poisoning the well before we've even started here, which is to say they say this is a scam. No, nobody's going anywhere. We're not going to run off with $2,000. In that context, it's not like Greater Sapien. What is it, 10K that he's ripped off?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, remember him?
And it's not like a funeral that I need to pay for because someone died unexpectedly and I couldn't afford it. It's because I think that there is a valid argument that somebody should be responsible for the accuracy of what we're told. And I've got a feeling that nobody's going to be responsible, because everybody will argue that it's too remote, that it's not their fault. Everybody will pass the buck, because I don't think they can prove their assertions are true. I don't think that 93 million mile sun is true. I don't think they can prove it. But if they can't prove it, why are we being taught it? Because where is that proof? So, for example, Rumpus claims the whole body is science. Well, where is that? You've had numerous opportunities to demonstrate it. And the best we've come up with is something that basically admits that Cassini based his mathematics on the assumption that Venus was the same size as Earth and that Earth had a fixed circumference based on the radius. Well, that's not proof. That's a story that is based on an assumption. And if that's the best it gets, then I'm sorry, but that's not good enough. And I'm going to question it. I'm going to put forward the argument that somebody should be responsible unless the evidence is stronger than just a story in some book somewhere that said about something that was an assumption. Because I don't think that's strong enough.
Indeedy. So yeah, but I'm sure, rather than fumbling around in the aftermath when it turns out, like with Greater Sapien, to be a massive, massive, huge sham, as we all knew it was. We don't live on a sphere. You're never going to be able to transfer a sphere if you don't live on a sphere. But nonetheless, this is entirely different. There's going to be work that's done along the way that will get shown while you're doing it, presumably, or at least discussed.
I'll be open with what I'm doing and the angles that I'm going to look at, and I'll talk to people when I find out the answers for whether or not there was a prosecution ever for laws that actually exist but don't seem to get implemented. I'll find out what the laws are. I'll find out what, for example, the Secretary of State for Education is legally responsible for. Is he legally responsible for something really broad, wishy-washy, and basically so vague and ambiguous that you'll never get him on anything? Or is he specifically charged with promoting or accelerating or whatever the education of the state, of the people in the state, the citizens? I mean, how broad is his responsibilities? What's the responsibilities of a teacher? Could a teacher ever be personally responsible for the things that they teach? Probably not. Well, what if the teacher's an ex-NASA employee that's supposed to have gone on the International Space Station? That makes it a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to find out what all the relative laws are, and I'll find out has there ever been a prosecution, and I'm pretty certain there won't have been. And I'm just going to put the cat amongst the pigeons and ask the question, well, how do we know it's true? And ultimately, in one sentence, really, that's the question I'm asking. How do we know it's true? But for it to qualify in the discipline I'm in, it's got to overlap with law. So I've got to find out what the law is and then question whether anybody would ever be prosecuted. And
sorry, can I just ask? Just want to read out Rumpus's question. I'll just scroll down so I can find the exact words. So at Sleeping Warrior, so are you going to prosecute exam boards? ?
No, that's not how academic works. Academics works is in you ask a question, you present both sides and the evidence that goes with both sides, and by arguing both sides, you then come to an academic conclusion. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a legal conclusion, but it is academic. There is a difference between an academic and a legal argument. But if there's an academic argument, you can bet your bottom dollar there's a legal argument too. It's just whether or not you go through the court system or whether you go through the education system. But if you go through the court system, you benefit from a prosecution. But if you go through the education system, you benefit from credibility. So it's, do you go for the prosecution or do you go for the credibility? And on this occasion, I want the credibility because we're all criticized for not having any peer review. Well, guess what? If it goes through the other side and passes and doesn't fail for some real ethical weird reason, which is a possibility, then you're never going to be able to argue that there are no peer-reviewed papers anymore, because there would be one.
Well, the thing is, if you were to represent somebody from the educational establishment at some level or another, you as the solicitor would want to know that your client vis-a-vis the education system was credible basically upon taking that case as their solicitor. And so essentially it can be said that it would protect your legal reputation as a solicitor to basically vet the validity of the education establishment for possible future representation of clients from that very market.
I think there's more benefits than detriments. I think that the big risk is that it may get rejected before it even gets submitted, and that it gets rejected upon submission and then technically fails, regardless of the merit of the case that's argued. But either way, there is the risk that this will be one of those ones where the university itself will question whether or not this is ethically or morally something that particular institution wants to be involved with. Because let's face it, if you were the institute, would you really want something that's on the face of it pro-flat Earth going through the system? You're not going to want your name going through that, are you? So it's like, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not the institution accepts it, because it is my choice. It says it clearly in the course. It says, I choose. Well, if that's really the case, then I should be able to choose it and it shouldn't be rejected. But we all know that may not be the case, because it's one of those sensitive topics. It's like doing on 9/11. If you did something on 9/11, that probably wouldn't be accepted, right? You're on that level.
Can I just get Arwin? He just typed something in the chat. Arwin, can you just read out what you just typed, please?
Oh, I said, your precious globe indoctrination spreading institutions will be scrutinized.
Yeah. And hey, at the end of the day, with it being merely academic, it's arguing both sides. So it doesn't even matter whether you're right or wrong, as long as you present your arguments both ways and academically argue that there is a case there, then that doesn't make it legal. It just means academically it's there, but it's contentious. And like I said, the real risk is that it doesn't actually get through. I don't think the risk is failing on merit. I think it's more failing on the substance in terms of the topic. Because I wonder whether I really do have the free will to choose the way the course says I do.
And Riley, you got to remember this. You could also see this as kind of a response, because remember, they just had you in a newspaper article talking about how you've been debunked, quote unquote, by Metabunk, which we actually debunked. You know what I mean? So that's a good response. It almost seems like it needs to be you to do this because of that.
I enjoy the back and forth. I enjoy the discussion. It's the most interesting topic that I've come across, and I've researched quite a few. I've researched the pyramids, 9/11. I've researched quite a lot of the conspiracies, the Titanic, and all of them seem like benign in that they're all isolated to what they actually are. But this is definitely a malignant topic. It will spread through. I think it's got the potential to spread through a lot, and it'll ruffle feathers in such a way that I don't quite know which way it's going to go, and I'm quite nervous at the thought of where it may end up. But maybe it's just that they'll just reject it and that'll be the end of it, or maybe it'll start something else totally unexpected that I never anticipated in the first place. But either way, I'm curious to see what happens, because I think it's a good cause. I think that Flat Earth will generally benefit from it, and I think that once somebody reads it, they'll sit back and they'll be like, oh my God, I've got to sign this off now and submit it, because it's a job to submit it off, right? They can't bin it off for just... Well, I don't know what the reasons for binning it off would be, but I would suspect they can't bin it off just because they don't agree with the topic content. But I can guarantee you that they won't agree with the topic content.
Shout out to Dell in chat.
Yeah, Dell, I'm still blocked on your channel. Someone keeps blocking me. I'm not going to name any names, but I think it might be Team Foyet. Anyway. So now I've got a... Yeah, so I'm on the course. I know what I'm doing next. And I think I've got maybe 2, maybe 3 weeks to raise the money for it. And the fee's just over $2,000. So that's what we're going to have to do now. I'm going to have to do a bit of advertising and hopefully get this done. Because I really do want to do it, because I want somebody to basically read it on the other side of the exam board and not fail it. That's what I really want. If it comes out the other side and they've not failed it for, well, it won't be failed on merit, but I just want them to pass it on the not. I want them to not fail it on the substance in terms of the topic, because if it comes through the other side, then it adds credibility to the argument that flat Earth isn't a waste of time after all, right? I think it's credible. I think it's a good thing to do.
I think
It's
the
like
scientific
George
method
George
is right.
has a
It's
lot to
just a,
say in the chat.
the scientific method is right. It's just these theorists that try to cut corners. They're not right.
Yeah, I think there's going to be definitely a dedicated section to the scientific method and what we accept as science, because what we accept as science isn't
Be
necessarily
careful
science.
though. Our rough-edged classic version of the scientific method, yeah, it may be completely outright rejected, depending.
That's the risk. It's not about arguing whether it's flat or not. It's about arguing it in such a way that it doesn't get rejected for being too controversial.
Right. So you may need to be a little bit more careful.
Yeah,
With certain assumptions, like things like directions, might not be accepted.
But so long as the law is argued both ways, then in theory they should never reject it if it's qualified and quantified with the legal arguments, because the legal arguments is what the whole point of the course is. So the point of the course is not about whether it's flat or not. The argument is going to be, or the point of the course is whether or not there's an argument in the first place, a legal argument. So I think that this is a really good opportunity for, well, basically 4, 5, 6 really strong arguments against what we're told, because I don't think they can prove their stuff. And if anybody can point me to the proof for the 93 million mile sun to save me from putting that in there, that's one of the ones I'll be putting in. Where is the proof that the sun's 93 million miles away?
Well, it's very likely they're just going to point at NASA and leave it to that.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Then you got people like Tommy who will say things like, it doesn't mean it's flat because it looks flat. Does that mean it's curved then because it looks flat? Like,
so the rumpus states, you're going to fail to make this a legal issue. You're going to fail to make this a legal issue. It's not a legal issue, it's an academic issue.
You asked
so I'm
that
not
question.
trying to make it a legal issue.
On.
I'm trying to
Why
make
is
it
he saying
academic.
that? He literally asked that question, got a detailed answer saying it's not being pursued as in seeking prosecution of anybody. That was explained. Is he deaf?
Well, I think there's going to be lots of legal obfuscation there in terms of like the arguments for and against, but ultimately that's all good. If people make statements that are fallaciously wrong, then they get corrected. But I will be ignoring most of the trolls because they're not actually going to benefit. I'm interested in the actual evidence, and if anybody has the evidence for the 93 million mile sun, or can point me where it's recorded and documented, who did it, when was it done, what was the method, that's the science that we should be doing, because the sun is a phenomena in the sky. It does move. It does have a perception to it. It might not be spherical. It might be flat. It could be holographic. But we do see something in the sky that gives us light and warmth. And we should be able to measure the distance to it, because it's one of the fundamental basic things that we see. And it's like, well, how far away is that? We should be able to measure it. But I don't think that measurement even exists. That's why I agree with Arwin when he says there is no measurement distance to the sun. Well, where's the science that shows it? You know what I mean?
Especially because we're supposed to have the capability to send machines over there and observe the sun. Like, don't they have 2 satellites like on each side of the sun supposedly? Like, how do
Really?
so they figured out how to send these things out there from assumptions? It's ridiculous.
Right. That's where the proof is. The proof is the fact that they have satellites out there, so they did know the distance.
So
It's all circular.
George says that he has a paper for me that makes the distance to the sun, me dumbass. Well, George, why don't you join the panel and present it? Because I've been asking for it for months. So if you've been able to have this information all this time and now you're going to present it, why haven't you done it before? Right. Come on.
I want to, by the way, respond to something Rumpus said. Sometimes he actually says interesting things, could be lies, but he said that basically it is a matter of curriculum, and it's determined by a certain panel. So that
That's
may
right.
be
We already
the
covered that
target.
exactly verbatim.
Just saying that could be the target.
I've looked into the national curriculum and I found what the law is that established what the national curriculum was, and I know what the current law is, and I've seen who's responsible for it. I know what the law says so far on the national curriculum. The question is, has anybody ever been prosecuted for anything, or has it ever even been challenged? Because if it's a scientific consensus that is accepted rather than evidence or proof that it's true, then I don't think anybody's ever going to be challenged. I think it might be one of those laws that exists that nobody ever gets prosecuted on. It's there, and they tell us that it's a rigid framework and all that. But if it doesn't actually prosecute anybody because nobody's ever questioned or challenged it, then what use is it? You know what I mean?
Indeed.
Yep.
But if it is so easy to know the distance to the sun and the science is there, George, why have you never presented it when it's been asked and asked and asked and asked and asked?
Just ignore George. You know, his memory's not what it used to be. He gets confused. He thinks that he's got paperwork for things that we've been asking for dozens and dozens of times that he's never presented. Just senile. Just ignore him.
He probably has a newspaper rolled up, banging against his head regularly.
Simon in the chat says, "Is Ranty on holiday? I miss him. I miss Ranty too." Shout out to Ranty Flat Earth.
I think he's earning beer tokens, isn't he? Is that working?
I assume so. I think he's just working. I don't think he's on holiday.
No, he got that P1000 and now he's too good for everybody.
At least there's no panel member sniping.
Well, we're just trying to brush that under the carpet. The whole P1000 thing was a massive scam.
Yeah. We're trying to distract away from the attention.
Yeah. I hope he gets the 4K sorted on that camera.
The thing with Ranty is he'll ask for the answer, right? You'll give him the answer and he'll not do it.
But don't knock him too soon. He's only just got the camera. I mean, when I was talking to him, he was like, yeah, he was telling me how he had got it, what he was doing in 4K. And he was doing it at a high frame rate, so it was chewing through his memory in no time. I was like, you're not filming super fast moving cars or anything. You know, you don't need it at a high frame rate. You just need the resolution so that you can zoom right in on it and have the pixel density. That's all you really want. Because the first stuff he presented, what he caught was in 1080. It's just that's how he got the camera to work. And I was like, you know, it's just a bit heartbreaking, isn't it? You want to see it in 4K. And there's a few people on the video as well. First comment I think, in fact, was 4K question mark. You know, because obviously they've gone straight to the HD tab and gone, where's the 4K? But yeah, he'll get it sorted, I'm sure.
Becoming the new standard, is it?
Say again?
It's becoming the new standard?
4K?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, in the same way most people have got a HD 1080 telly, that's because that was the standard a few years back. 4K, it's not really the standard, it's the upper echelons, it's high end. But if you're a videographer and you've got access to 4K, it's not necessarily that you want to present it in 4K, but you want the pixel density. So when you're looking at something or zooming in on it, so what Ranty will typically do is he'll take a screen grab, or I'll do it on my iPad. It's I don't know if it's actually 4K, but it's certainly higher than 2K resolution, and I can take a screen cap of it and then zoom right in on it. Now, if it's only taken in 1080 to begin with, then it's lower than the resolution of my screen and Ranty's. I think he's got a 4K screen. I'll have to double check that. But either way, it's not necessarily that you want to present it in 4K. If this image on screen now was taken in 4K, you'd be able to, you'd be able to get much more detail on the lighthouse because you'd have greater pixel density. That's why you'd want it in 4K. So it's not necessarily that you want to play this still from a video in 4K, but once you've got the still from the 4K image, it's like having a very high resolution photograph, so you can just look at it in more detail. That's the benefit of 4K.
Right.
It's kind of like a fast car. You don't get it so you can go 250 miles per hour. It's so you can get on the highway at 0 to 60 real quick and easy.
Yeah. Exactly.
That makes me think the Earth is flat. My white
And
brothers.
ego.
Good to know, Pete.
So, P, do you know the distance to the sun?
There is no distance like to the sun totally. The Earth is like flat.
High
like,
globe philosophy.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey. It's the Aussie that sits on his porch drinking, right?
You got me. Hey, while I got you, Anthony, yeah, I wish you all the best with your endeavour. And yeah, certainly it's heading in the right direction. You're going to have some obstacles ahead of you, but yeah, all the best, buddy.
Thank you. I think the
Well,
biggest risk is that they might reject it, but it's my choice, right? I may get put into a position where they won't let me do it on the topic of my choice, and I may have to refine it or drop it completely. Then there's a dilemma, in which case I'll have to come back to people that help and say, right, what do I do here? But it is my choice, and I will be asserting that rights because I have the choice to put in the topic of my choice, and I want to put this topic in. So it's going to be interesting to see how it's dealt with, because no one's going to want to sign it off, really, are they?
oh man, you got
Well,
the
you never
whole
know
world
that,
again.
man, because this is something, whether the ball is like it or not, flat Earth is blowing up. People
Yeah,
are
it is.
waking up to this shit. So, you know, there are a lot of closeted flat earthers out there who don't talk about this shit, but damn well know that we don't live on a ball.
Yep.
So, you never know. You never know when you do present this, you know, you never know who you're going to catch, who you might, I don't know. You just don't know, and you won't ever know until you try. So,
Like totally, like when I was first telling people like the Earth was like flat, they were laughing, but like they aren't laughing
P, are you
anymore.
gonna have a real conversation, or you just came into troll today?
They're not laughing anymore. Like people are waking up. Can I have money now?
Okay, that's funny.
Very
Will
amusing.
you buy it? If we give you like $2, will you buy a clue?
Will you buy what?
A clue.
I want like money.
Go get
to
a
buy,
clue.
Like
He
a
Go
wants
get a
to
camera.
grip.
go for the
so I can-
flag.
Mars.
He wants to be paid.
I want to like buy a camera so I can totally do like flat Earth activism
Yeah.
and record it and like put it on my like YouTube channels.
Really? Do you want to show us what you've got to date with the equipment you've got already?
I just got like a crappy webcam. I just need a cheap camera because like I think people might, you know, like get mad at me for telling them the Earth is flat. So like I want a cheap camera in case someone.
How would the Earth be flat?
breaks it.
Aren't you the
I
one
found
who
the
says you
$270
can see
P900.
curve outside your window? Isn't that you who says that all the time?
Like I thought I was seeing like curve outside my window, but like I was
Like,
totally
for sure.
brainwashed.
Oh my god! Like,
Did you change your medication again?
Like medication's like bad that comes from like pharmaceutical.
I could see the
movies.
curvature outside my window, and like flatlands prove the curve. So like, yeah, I'm P Mars.
Like, give me money now.
Give me money.
Hey, Pete.
You're gonna
hey,
have
Pete,
to do a little bit more than that.
Hey, Pete. I don't know. Where did you get your name from?
Like my mother, like totally.
From
named
mommy.
me.
Oh,
That seems a
your
reasonable
mother
answer.
named you P Mars. Is she from Jupiter or somewhere?
Like P Mars is short for Patrick Marsden, which is like the name my mom gave me.
Sweet self-doxing.
Oh, that's so nice.
Not really. He's P
Marsden.
Mars has had his name out there for a while. Nobody gives
Yeah,
a
like
shit.
Antonio.
Marsden, what kind of
I was just
last
being
name is
sarcastic.
that?
Antonio Subarats showed everyone my house already, so
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, you on Flat Earth Cribs?
I got
What
like
is
a
Marsden?
millionaire's
What
house.
type of name? What is
It's
it called?
English.
Okay.
Every once in a
So,
while,
yeah.
you are a little funny, P.
No offense, P, but I'm not going to be donating to your cause. When I donated to Ranty's cause, it's because he'd already produced quite a substantial amount of evidence with his existing equipment that he had paid for. In the case of Anthony, he's already got 99% of what he needs and has paid for it already himself. So, yeah, they've all put the graft in. So they're not just saying, I'm thinking about becoming a lawyer. Can you pay for me to do that, please? That's not what's happening here.
And I just need 300 more subscribers, and then I can do it too. So please subscribe to me.
Globe, stop
Arwen.
playing with your microphone.
Oh, okay, I'm just eating here, man. I'm hungry. Hang on.
Okay. Right.
Just pop yourself on mute if you're not talking, Globe.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
So,
Jinx.
Subscribe to me.
So I guess the
Alright.
next thing I've got to do is finish the GoFundMe page that I've got to write up, and then I have to go down and I have to present myself with an ID check, because obviously you have to enter into an agreement. And obviously it's an agreement to pay for a service, and if I have to physically turn up and prove I am who I say I am, and when that happens, which is one day this week, I have to go down there this week. It's just what happens next and how do I get it started? Because it's definitely going to be interesting.
Yep.
I'm going to have to go and let the dogs out. I'll be back shortly.
Like, who let the dogs out? Totally.
For sure.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
You talking about George?
think
I
George
wouldn't
let
let-
the dogs out a long time ago.
I wouldn't let George dog sit for me. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, doxing. Sorry.
Dog
Oh, he
sit.
said dog sit.
All right. So, subject. What's next?
I could chat out the chat if no one's going to talk about anything. No?
Just waiting for that evidence. Just waiting for that proof.
Chats then, in that case. Reptilian Overlord, good to have you in the chat. Gassy Juice, nice to see you. Roger MC, thanks for being here. Lenny Harry says, boom! Boom to you too, Lenny Harry. Good to have you here. Barbara McGill. Barbie McGill. Barbara McGill. Is that right? Barbara McGill? Used to be Barbie.
Yeah.
Good to have you.
Yeah.
Bob Senior, nice to see you as well. Mark
I think
Taylor,
it's Barbara
thanks for being here.
McPill.
Say again, PMAS?
I think her name's Barbara McPill.
McPill?
McGill.
McGill.
McPill.
No, McGill.
He's trying to be funny.
Oh, it's a joke.
Barbie.
Yes.
Okie dokie. Shout out to Mark Taylor. Good to have you here. Lenny Harry, I've already said. Frank, you know. Nice to see you. YouTube Surgeon General. Thanks for being here. Peanuts Clark. Good to see you as well. Truth Agent Robert MB. Thanks for being here. Dan W. Nice to see you. Vinegar Strokes. Good to see you as well. Dank, thanks for being here. Ryan Q. Vincent. Been reading your comments. I totally agreed with you. I didn't actually get to reply, but Ryan Q. Vincent was like, don't bother showing them documents that are retracted. They'll just claim that they're bollocks. Why bother wasting your time? And I thought about it and thought, yeah, he's right.
I agree. What I will do is I'll show it to the people that are reputable in within Flat Earth. I'll show them the original documents. And I mean, Nathan knows anyway, but I'll show it to other people too to show that it's true. And then you just have to trust that we're not lying, because I can't allow a poisoning of a well situation, which definitely will happen if I reveal too much information. Sorry, it's the troll's fault.
Well, it doesn't matter. There'll be plenty of people. I mean, if somebody was to donate and request the information, I'd probably still decline. Because, you know, it would be worth paying £10 or something just to get the information so you could go and poison the well. So it'd be like, no.
Yeah.
You know, there'll be a select... If you don't trust that Anthony's doing what he's doing, don't donate. There you go. Simple, easy. Don't donate if you don't trust us. Trust us.
So
Trust Anthony.
George says the distance to the sun has been performed and submitted in a document to Journal Science. Okay, so that's an assertion. Can we see the proof? Because if you're going to claim that something's there, then you must know it's there and must be able to produce it. Otherwise, you wouldn't make the assertion. Correct? Well, let's see that. Where is it?
Really?
And you know when they say about when the trolls say knowledge should be free, or what's the thing that they always say? The truth shouldn't cost you any money, right? Well, we all know that that's not true, because I know from my own experience in just with the legal stuff that you need access to the legal databases to be able to get the information that you need to be able to do whatever you're going to do with it. That doesn't come free. You have to pay for that. So the truth is not free. It never has been free, and it never will be free, because it always costs somebody something to show what the truth is.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm on this site here. It's pretty much mainstream, and just coincidentally, an article has just come up here in Australia. The author of a new biography of Sir Isaac Newton says the scientific genius predicted the world would reset within our lifetime. And then it goes down to say he was convinced the future events were already ordinated by God. That's unusual. And he says that there'll be some catastrophic thing that will happen by 2060. So the mainstream's pushing this sort of an agenda. I mean, they push things left, right, and centre, but it's just really interesting that they'd bring Isaac Newton in to prophetic sort of, he's just predicting things.
Hooray, sounds familiar.
I wouldn't worry about their plan
People predicting for the last 20 years or 30.
I wouldn't worry about their plan to depopulate. Let's talk about flat Earth.
What?
You being sarcastic, P?
No, I think flat Earth is much more important than the depopulation agenda.
Like I said, you being sarcastic.
Hey, Dan.
No.
Hey, Dan.
Flat Earth is the most important truth. It doesn't, the depopulation agenda is a thing, but I don't think it really, I mean, if we wake people up to flat Earth, then they won't be able to depopulate us.
So you're a flat earther this week? Or today?
We're all flat earthers, right? Because even the people who are indoctrinated.
Good answer, P. Good answer.
We all live on a flat plane, so.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Nathan George reckons he knows. He's got a document on the distance of the sun. I'd invite George to join, present it.
His document on
I'll bet you it's going to contain mathematical formulas.
Well, he reckons he can prove the distance to the sun, and if I mean, obviously, if he's right, then I wouldn't want to put that in this thing, would I? Because I wouldn't want to look stupid, would I, George? So wouldn't it be in the best interests of science to present the information when requested to do so? Why don't you join and present it?
Just give me 15 minutes.
We have a full panel right now, but yeah, 15 minutes.
If anybody can prove that there's a molten iron core, that would be another one that's interesting. That would be helpful, because I wouldn't want to put stuff in there that is debunkable, right?
These globies are brainwashed to just see the positive aspects of science. They cannot see any negative or sinister intentions behind it.
That's right.
Okay, so I knew there would have been a negative spin to religion and the Bible in this article. Right at the end, it says, while much of his life work on alchemy and the date of the world's creation, as according to the Bible, has been discredited, Sir Isaac's contributions to science and mathematics remain almost unparalleled nearly 300 years after he died. Oh, yeah, like unparalleled. Anyway.
Yeah, he believed, all right.
Yeah, like they're making him out as if he was some god that, produced this science and mathematics that were unparalleled, 300 years after he died. And
what?
So,
are you complaining that they used him to prove that math is reality by using maths? What's wrong with that?
Math is reality.
It's one of the best sayings ever, that.
Yeah,
It's a
two
shame,
plus two. No, one plus one equals window.
Science, man, science.
Someone told me yesterday that Tesla is frozen in carbonite somewhere in Niagara Falls. So I think we should organize a GoFundMe to thaw him from the carbonite, and Tesla would be an amazing flat Earth asset to the flat Earth.
Why don't you go find him
CNN said
first?
kryptonite is real and it's a threat to all humanity.
No, hold on. Let's take this seriously, because, you know, Elon...
Really?
Did you say Elon Musk? No, Tesla. My bad. So Tesla could be frozen from the carbonite and lead the resistance.
No.
That would be awesome.
That's what I'm thinking.
Right, let's go and thaw out Tesla.
Maybe they froze him with all his like secret technology that he created that we don't know about.
He just put himself into electrical stasis.
Tesla
No, those Edison boys had their way with good old Tesla, man.
Tesla was given access to the
Edison
Vatican library when he was younger, and I think that's where he got a lot of his secret knowledge from.
Did we not have an on-air discussion about the primary source evidence for Tesla? Was that off-air or on-air, Arwin? So I'm pretty sure I challenged you to get me primary source evidence for Tesla. And
right.
And you presented a couple of tertiary sources. Do you remember?
Did I? Yeah.
How are you getting on with that primary source evidence for Tesla?
No. Not
Hey, Arwin, on that point.
I'll get on it at some point.
On that point, when you were not in the call, me and Nathan had a continuing conversation about Tesla, and I was arguing what you were saying. I was saying that, there's enough evidence that supports the idea that Tesla existed. And Nathan said it's not the fact that the guy existed, it's the story that's attached to him that's the issue. He said, what primary source evidences have you got to support the official narrative? So I've just started to look online. And
apparently John Trump
said there's a directory of all of his copyrights and his patents that you can download copies of, or you can get copies of. And I clicked the link that says click here to order one, and the link failed. The link didn't allow you to go anywhere, so you couldn't actually order anything. And
I've had one of these books.
Nathan was like, yeah, I told you. And I was like, oh my God, is that a coincidence that the link didn't work? Or is it because it's just made to look like it's legit when it actually isn't?
Like that trip to Antarctica, that polar flight. I mean, we all called like in advance that it wasn't going to happen, and they could come up with any excuse, under the sun, that they wanted. But we all called in advance clearly that it wasn't going to take place under any circumstances.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be registered with the USPTO if any of his inventions were legitimate. So
that's
one
the point.
or another.
There was a list of patents that you could get, right? And it said click here to order a copy, download a copy online, or whatever it said. And when I clicked here, it just said like 404 forbidden error network thing, and I was like, what? Nathan sat there with this smug little grin on his face saying, see? And I was like, maybe he's got a point. Maybe it is true what he's saying.
But you can get a 404 error for looking up porn online. So a 404 error doesn't.
And how do you know that?
oh, sorry. Did I just slip? Sorry.
It sounds like an addiction.
I don't know what kind of porn would give you a block like that. It must be pretty tragic.
Try it for yourself. Just go out, have a look for primary source evidence for Tesla. See how you get on.
Is it JLB doesn't agree that he existed?
Yeah, JLB's on the same level. Tragic. Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to JLB.
Yeah.
Yeah, the history hoax is fascinating.
Definitely. History gets written by the victor, that's for sure. And like Tesla could be just a story, but I don't know. Like I like to think that he did exist. It's a good story, isn't it?
It's a very nice story.
Well, one of the documents that I was like when I was like researching, but without access to the documents that I now have access to, I found that Michael Gove, who's like the former education secretary, he claims that a lot of history teachings are false, based on the fact that they go into what did he call it? A post-colonial guilt, and is not supported by data. Now, if Michael Gove is claiming that history teachings are false, then that, I mean, who's Michael Gove, right? But the point is that if somebody high in Parliament is saying that the history teachings are false, that's got to make some people think, why would he say that? Just type it in, Michael Gove, history teachings are false on Google, and you'll find it. There's an article on the Guardian.
Well, history teachings are false. I know that firsthand. I'm a Macedonian. I'm an Australian, born here, but I've got Macedonian blood. Both my mother and father are Macedonian, and history is trying to erase the Macedonians as we speak. They're trying to change Macedonia's name because Greece is against Macedonia being a sovereign nation for obvious reasons. Where Macedonians go back 300, 400 years, if not more, before Christ. And so we've been a country for a very long time, and Greece, the Greece nation that was formed a lot later, is a bit worried that we might have some land that we might want to recover. But without getting too political, I should say, with history gets distorted, one way or another, and gets erased all the time. And Macedonia is one of those examples.
Istanbul is not Constantinople.
You just have to you just have to read 1984 again if you want to, get a broad outline of how history is being hoaxed. It's just written by whoever's writing the history. It doesn't necessarily have to be true. It just has to support whatever narratives needing to be perpetuated.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's some official lines that some high-leading Nazis got killed in Germany, but it turns out they were in Argentina, just living it up.
Even old New York was once Amsterdam. Why they changed it, I can't say. People just like it better that way.
Alrighty then.
Anyway, we're still upside down here in Australia at the moment.
Damn, you beat me to it, man. I was gonna ask you, how's everything upside down, man? Beat me to
it. Hey, it's awesome down here.
Is it a prerequisite to be drunk?
Got the
yeah, it does seem to be. Was Jazz? Oh, by the way, Jazz Conda blocked me in the last hangout that he was in. Did you notice in the side chat?
Oh my god, he was a mess in the last debate.
I'll give him credit. He beat the drunk clock, or the puke clock, though. Remember, I said I gave him 10 minutes to vomit, and he beat the vomit clock. I will give him credit for that. So shout out to Jazz for beating the vomit clock.
Shout out retracted.
That's just because of years of experience of drinking. It's like when you're in a car and you know you're going to throw up, and you're like, no, I'm going to fight it.
You could hear him fighting it for sure, though. He was fighting it. I think it came up in his mouth at least a couple times.
Jesus.
Now, my all-time favorite Jazz Condo one was when he said, "Jump out of a plane and."
I like to debate.
Weigh yourself as you're coming down.
I like to debate alcoholics and drug addicts.
Fair play. Yeah,
shout out to Tommy.
You don't have to hang around with these people, whoever they are.
Well, but when Nathan starts his show at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Jazz Conda's had about 8 hours of drinking.
Shout out to Candy.
Well, it's like 1:30 or 1 o'clock here in Australia at the moment, or thereabouts. It'd be a little bit later in New Zealand, I would imagine. So it does get a bit late. And if you start drinking, early in the night, waiting for Nathan, you do get a bit drunk.
Yeah, it's going to get messy pretty quick when he does turn up.
Yeah.
So you get the fresh out of bed Americans and the half drunk Aussies and Kiwis. It's great. It's a good combo.
Oh, look, you've there are people awake. That's the main thing, you know. We might be half drunk, but we're awake. We know what's going on. We know that the Earth's not a bloody spinning ball, you know. And
you know you're not upside down.
I think Jazz should have to put a breathalyzer in his helicopter. Make sure he's sober before he, goes up gallivanting around as he does. Because I'm pretty sure he's actually been on the panel while he's flying and admitted being drunk at the time.
Oh my god!
Are you serious?
I think Australians and New Zealand guys should all pull the victim card when it's suggested that they're upside down to us, because what makes it us that's the right way up? You know what I mean? Why is it not that we're upside down to them and they're the right way up? You know what I mean? It's like are we not being like put into a moral high ground because they're giving way that we're the right way up and they're upside down? Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's like they say there's no up or down in space, right? But yet every time they show us Earth, it's always orientated in the same way. So it's like you never get a picture of upside down Earth. You know, satellites never happen to just take a picture of it sideways or something like that. You always get the same angle. Yeah. So it's like what the hell you guys do?
We've got no choice. We got put down here, you know, like they just built this globe that sits at, 23.4 degrees, and we're just unlucky. We've ended up down under, you know, so we just got to live with it, I suppose.
Shout out to M. Scott Beach in chat.
I have a jazz
retracted.
I have a jazz conda question.
You have to say shout out retracted.
If you guys are going to be digging from the center of the earth, when do you guys become upside down when you're digging right side up?
You know, I think of that question and it drives me nuts.
Well, I did have to say it's a jazz conda question.
Yeah, because technically you would come out of the other side of the planet feet first.
Well, I was going to say, if you dig a hole right the way through the center of the earth and pop out the other side, if you then jump in the hole from England, right, and then you traverse into the middle of the planet, and then you start to come out the other side, wouldn't gravity pull you back to the middle so that effectively you end up in the middle and don't move? Or you couldn't pop out the other side, would you? Because then down would be up.
Is that like an escape from Alcatraz or something? Like that sort of thing?
What would happen, Arwin? Arwin, what would happen?
What?
Arwin, what would happen if you dug a hole right the way through to your antipode position, the other side of the earth, but then you jumped into the hole from the position that you're in? What would happen as you pass through the center? Would you start to decelerate until you came to a stop and then go back towards the center of the earth?
So we found our presupposition right here. Evidence of the presupposition as we speak.
You would get roasted by the molten iron core, for starters, and perhaps crushed by the pressure.
We'll wrap ourselves in a bit
can I answer the question? Yeah. We'll mute for like 20 minutes. So, yeah. And if you actually drop and there is a momentum.
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. If you hated the show, then you know exactly what to do, and I've probably done it already. But if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
So you probably didn't hear that Arwen was talking.
It's because you didn't.
Person, but he has his own code of conduct that I personally would not agree with, but that's just the way he chooses to be. Okay.
I think you have a beautiful mind. I would appreciate you a lot more on my panel.
Well, it's not reciprocal, so.
Oh, it's Discord.
Right, finished.
Nathan, do you wanna help me go through this GoFundMe description thing?
you want me to help you go through it? I've never done one. Ask Ranty.
You were meant to say, yeah, okay, then let's do it.
Okay, okay, I'll end this recording and we'll crack on with it then.
All right.
Hey, I'll definitely put some money towards that, Anthony, for you, mate, for sure.
Oh, nice one, man. Cool.
Yeah, me too. I'll be the first to donate, Anthony. If you want to crack on with it now, I'll get the first donation in once we've done it.